health issues, for the mental health issues. It's gonna be paid somehow, and it's, would you rather invest and be able to do your best or give it back to the medical system later?
Well, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. I'm excited to have this conversation. I think probably today, more than any other time in history, people have a little bit more stress in their lives. And I think one of the most important things, at least for me, has been understanding the importance of intentional breath. So like I know for you, that's a kind of a big focal point. And I'd love if we can kind of start off by you let me know, like, hey, how did you even get into this position where that was the thing that you even cared about?
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, well, let's dive in.
All right. So I started, I was in the investment business for 15 years. Graduated college in 2001 and kind of just went straight into the investment world. Last 10 years of it, I was on the trading floor, just a high stress environment, a lot of personal, professional stress, anxiety. Went through a divorce in 2014, and kind of through that process, I was like, okay, I got to do something else, something different. And I started using just mindfulness meditation. I was like, okay, this makes me feel a little bit better. And then I read about this guy, Wim Hof, and was like, okay, I'm going to try this. I was like, well, this is really powerful. Just the way you can completely change your state there. So I started going much deeper kind of in what he had going on with his breathing techniques, started reading more, finding different books and different yoga techniques. Then I heard Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese talking on Tim Ferriss's podcast and Brian McKenzie, and they had this thing called XPT. Basically, they were doing a lot of breathing techniques for performance. Laird, big wave surfer. Brian is he's a performance coach, dealt with a lot of high-end athletes, executives. Gabby, professional volleyball player, actress, model. So they were using all these breathing techniques really for performance, and also doing stuff in the saunas and ice baths, and doing these unique pool workouts where breath is very much a focus, really kind of understanding your stress response. You get somebody with weights in the water, and you really learn how you begin to stress out, your mind freaks out, and kind of those triggers. So that year I decided I'm going to go do one of these experiences. They have them in Malibu, they have them in Hawaii, kind of all over, and get out there, and it's about 20 high-performing people from all over, from doctors, lawyers, Olympic gold medalists, other professional athletes, and they kind of just throw you in the fire. And going through using those techniques, it was just extremely powerful, and how I was able to respond to the stress, how it made me feel. Then just kind of using them from there on, just my stress, anxiety started to lessen, able to kind of go through the stresses of life, perform a little better in chaos, not as reactionary as I was, just more able to respond to the stressful events, whether it was market driven or personal. So going through that, I decided to quit my job. And it's about 6 months after that experience, and became one of their first coaches, and started my company Symmetry about a year later, and been doing this ever since 2018. And then, really kind of branched out in much more one-on-one group coaching starting right after the COVID period.
Mm. And so for you, you saw a lot of personal impact, even, obviously enough to start this as a business, but like in your personal life, looking at where you were originally, that kind of led you into starting this. Now you think that there's a tremendous market difference in how you show up for yourself and your relationships based on that sort of breathing technique and everything you learned?
Oh, 100%. Not just how I'm able to show up, be more present. Now I'm remarried, have a 18-month-old child, a little girl, being able to be there for my wife and kid, being able to be there for my clients, much more present, especially with everything we have coming at us in this day and age. So really using the breathing techniques, still have kind of a practice that I do every morning. They're not necessarily as long, and they've kind of, shifted and moved over the years. But even what we do a lot with clients at first is just changing how you're breathing every day, is what we call everyday breathing. So it's getting people to start breathing through their nose, breathing lower and breathing slower. And, some people, that just small little shift can have almost an instant impact in how they feel. Whether they're, I live in Memphis, Tennessee, so traffic around here and our drivers can be kind of crazy. So not reacting in those situations, or just able to handle, meetings or presentations at work, things like that better. Or if you're an athlete, keeping your mind calm before going into a competitive event. I could see some big changes. It's kind of interesting. I was watching a video. Somebody sent me like a week ago, Rory McIlroy talking about using these breathing techniques into something that really helped him through the Masters and helped him in his golf career, and how one of the big changes that he's made over the last couple of years too. And so, it's I see it personally with myself, and now see it with clients, and kind of seeing it a little bit of everywhere.
Yeah, it is true. And I think for a lot of people, it's this one thing that you don't really think about as something you could even change. Like, you don't necessarily think actively about breathing. You're just breathing. And it's almost like you don't think there's a different way to do it. So like, even just sitting down, having this conversation right now, I would tend to assume you and I are breathing differently. You're breathing with a little bit more intentionality, or am I understanding that wrong?
What happens is, at this point, it's kind of almost going back to like an unconscious behavior for me. But, before we got on here, yes, I sat for a minute too, just kind of got control of my breath, noticed where it was, started slowing it down. Like you said, the breath is one thing natural. It's the first thing we do. It's the last thing we do. And it's automatic. If we're not breathing, we're going to die. But it's also something that we can take control of, and it's a tool we can use to change our mental and physical state. And that's what most people don't know, is that it's a tool that's been used for thousands of years. It's even talked about in ancient texts from the Bible, really on all religions, talking about breath. It's related to spirit. And so it's a powerful thing that we have and have the ability to use. Most of us just have never been taught it. And, now there's pretty much every major research institution comes out. They're doing studies on different breathing techniques with stress, anxiety, lowering your blood pressure, cardiovascular issues, overall helping with chronic stress. So you can see some major changes in your blood work, stuff along those lines as well that we've seen with our clients.
Mm-hmm. So this is obviously a high level question, and without going into too much detail, unless you want to, but if I wanted to intentionally change my breath to, how do I want to say this? If my goal is to improve my blood pressure or increase my HRV or whatever the goal is, what does it look like on average? Is this, hey, 2 minutes a day, or is it, an intentional activity over the course of the next 3 months? Like, what does a typical input to output look like there?
So, there's actually some studies on blood pressure. It's 5 to 10 minutes a day for 4 weeks. People start seeing an improvement. And that is just doing some basic breathing techniques. Some of the tests have been breathing in for 4 to 5 seconds, pause out for 4 to 5 seconds, or using a technique like box breathing. So breathing in for 4, holding for 4, out for 4, holding for 4. Like the 4 corners of the breath, and just creating an equal ratio in all those. So those are some basic techniques that you can use 5 to 10 minutes a day. When we're working with clients, that's really where we start with about 5 minutes. And even, I tell them, if you can't do 5 minutes, just do 1. We like to incorporate transitions in people's days. So after this, if you're on a Zoom call or a meeting, when you have that time, all right, check into yourself. Notice how you're breathing. Might be breathing a little bit more radically into your upper chest, breathing in and out of your mouth, putting you into a more stressed state. It's all right. Just shift that. Start breathing in through your nose, out through your nose, just becoming aware at first. And then that can bring the change. And so it starts with 5 minutes a day can make a massive difference.
So it's not this really major thing that's going to take up, 15 hours of your day for 5 weeks. It's really as simple as maybe a max of 10 minutes a day for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
To at least start seeing something.
To get started, yes. You can start with as little as 5 minutes a day. And we like to make things as easy as possible for people. In creating and building any new habit, it's got to be simple. It's got to be easy. If it's too much, you're not going to do it. What's the point of that if you're not going to do it? We look at a lot of kind of that type A high achievers that are constantly on, constantly going. They're super busy. they can't do a 2-hour morning routine, which, if you're looking on social media or things these days, that's typically what somebody's putting out there. We're trying to keep it 5-10 minutes, try to stack habits together. Maybe it's going outside and going on a little walk for 5 minutes and just focusing on your breathing then, is a great way to begin. So we're trying to make it super easy. And then kind of once you get that nervous system out of a overly stressed state, you get a little bit more grounded, then you can start expanding it. We like to use breath hold techniques, which is really great for building stress resiliency. There's other activating techniques that are kind of can ramp you up and give you a little boost of energy in the afternoon instead of, having to go for a shot of coffee at 2, which is going to mess up your sleep. And so, there's different ways to utilize the breath. But starting out, we're talking 5 minutes a day.
Wow. I definitely had the perception, at least personally, that it was a little bit more involved than that. So, for me, being in a position of high stress all the time, where would you recommend I start? Is it just, 5 minutes of box breathing? Like, what would be the initial starting point for someone who's looking to get started?
Start at first thing in the morning, 5 minutes. And when you first start, just create awareness. Notice how your breath feels. Notice where you feel it in your body, in your belly, in your chest. Just set a timer for 5 minutes and kind of follow your breath. Do that for a few days, then start focusing on, all right, let's slow it down. Slowly in through the nose, pause, slower out. Now, if you have trouble sleeping, I would say let's do about 5 minutes before you go to bed. And there we're wanting to focus on a slightly longer exhale. The exhale is more parasympathetic, so it's a little bit more calming to the nervous system. The inhale is more activating. So when we make the exhale longer than the inhale, it tends to calm us down. Breathing in for 4, out for 6, doing that before you go to bed. Have clients do that stuff and go to bed pretty quickly. So if you have trouble sleeping, start there. If you're not too bad on the sleep front, start first thing in the morning for 5 minutes. See how it makes you feel. And then as you're going through your day, all right, kind of set a little timer, check in, once every couple hours. How are you breathing? Are you sitting here breathing rapidly in and out of your mouth? Is it really loud? Is it quiet? Do you feel it in your upper chest? Can you bring your breath lower and think about breathing more horizontal as opposed to more vertical? That's going to keep you into a better, calmer state, keep the nervous system more regulated than breathing up in that upper chest. It doesn't really take a lot to get started. And then once you get started, you can kind of expand it from there. And we just kind of work out, depending on clients' goals, what they need, how we've looked at, what's going on with their life, whether they're an athlete, executive, we can expand that out into techniques that are really going to, kind of boost that stress resilience. So they kind of understand when you start getting stressed out, understand your interoception, like your heartbeat, your body. There's some fascinating studies they did on a group of traders at the London Stock Exchange, and those ones who had more interoceptive ability, basically the ability to feel their heartbeat, they did better. They performed better. They made more money. They had longer careers. They didn't just kind of push everything away. So kind of expand it out from there. But starting 5 minutes is a great way to begin.
Have you looked at all into mouth taping when you sleep?
Yeah, it's actually something I have been doing since I think 2017. And, I think there's a lot of benefits to it, but it's not for everybody. So if you are overweight, if you have sleep apnea, I wouldn't say that's the first thing you want to go. If you're healthy, you're in good condition, but you have some sleep problems, mouth tape's great. Just think about it. Our nose is made to breathe, mouth's made for speaking. If we're breathing in through it and out of our nose all night, that's going to keep us in a better state. It's going to make us more rested. We're going to get better REM sleep, better deep sleep. We're going to feel up, wake up, just feel better. If we're breathing in and out of our mouth all night long, that's going to put our body automatically in a more stressed state. You're going to wake up probably feeling more lethargic, probably get up more in the middle of the night, having to go to the bathroom. So if you're a healthy individual, I still do it multiple times a week. Used to do it every day. I think when I started, I did it probably every day for a few months, and saw great, improvements in all my sleep metrics. I've kind of tracked that stuff for years. I was an early adopter of the Oura Ring back in 2018, and now have a Garmin. And I can see a big difference when I mouth tape or when I don't. Now I only really use it when I feel like I need to.
It's interesting.
Have you tried it?
I have. I use it sporadically, not as much as I should, mostly because I haven't really made a habit of it. So it has not made its way into my nightly routine, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when I do use it, I definitely do notice that I sleep better.
Yeah. And most people, it kind of freaks them out. So we always have clients start out just putting it on like 5 minutes before they go to bed, then take it off. If it's going to stress you out, make you more anxious, there's no reason to really use it. So do it before you go to bed, get accustomed to it. And when you first start, I like the ELVT tape. That's a good brand I've found. But even like 3M micropore paper tape, this stuff comes off easily. So when you first start, I don't think I kept it on my mouth at all for probably the first week. I'd wake up and it'd be somewhere on my pillow, somewhere else. But once you kind of get used to it, your body adapts, and then you start more naturally breathing in and out of your nose, which is a great benefit. So it's not necessarily something you have to do all the time forever. I use it a lot when I travel. If I'm traveling, I always make sure to have it with me along with an eye mask. I just think that kind of helps greatly improve sleep when you're traveling.
Would you pair that with a nasal strip?
If you have problems, I don't really use nasal strips, but some people with deviated septums or really, issues breathing in and out of their nose, that can help. And there's actually little, I can't think of what they're called. They're like almost like little holes that like enlarge your nostrils you can kind of stick in. So it's similar, but not just on top of your nose, which I've got some clients who use those and they work pretty well too.
Yeah. It's amazing how many things have been developed to help you breathe better. I feel like they're more popular now than they've ever been.
Oh, 100%. There's, it's kind of like the cold plunges. There's now 1 million of them out there. There's 1 million different products for breathing. A lot of them can cost a lot of money, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You start just using your own body before really having to go to any of those other techniques. I've got some simple things that help build respiratory muscle strength, which is a great thing, especially if you're an athlete. But overall, for your overall health, having strong diaphragm, strong respiratory muscles, can help improve a lot. There's something that costs like $200-$300. But, I've got a simple product called the Breather Fit that's like $40. Or you can use balloons, which gives you a similar effect. So, as it's become more popular, people want to capitalize it. So there's a lot of products out there for it.
I think there's something to be said too about just looking at the evolution of it all, because, I think one of the problems a lot of people have, which I have from time to time, maybe more, is this desire to really kind of jump in with both feet and be an expert immediately. And it almost gets a little overwhelming because you think, hey, I got to know all the things. I have to go from zero to expert in a week. But like looking back on it, it sort of seems like, at least from what I understand of your journey, this started out as like, hey, let me lightly experiment with this. Let me learn some more, to the point where, you've gained expertise on it, but obviously you're still learning and still growing even more. So I think it's really like, people need to understand it's a journey, not necessarily something that you're going to jump into and be an expert tomorrow.
100%. It's a constant journey. And there's, the fascinating thing is now we're really starting to get the science and research. I just went through a new certification last summer called the Breath Science certification. And it was, deep dive into all the new science and literature that's really come, some of it's older, but a lot of it's come out in the last few years. And that group that I'm a part of, the guy who puts it out, who put it on, he's putting out stuff every month on the new research that's coming out, because there's really something constantly. And so we're learning more about how the breath, affects the nervous system, how it affects fear, different parts of your brain. So, you can get super deep into all this stuff, but you don't have to, in reality, you need to just start using some techniques on your own and experiment on yourself. Have that N of 1. How does it change? We always start when we're doing breath techniques is awareness. How do you feel when you start? How do you feel when you finish? We also use different tools to, different breathing assessments. Things like just exhaling as long as you can. One of the things called a max exhale test. Test your ability to tolerate and hunger and your mechanical ability to move your breath, which has a high correlation with stress and anxiety. So, looking at things like that, and just kind of giving yourself, 4 weeks, a month of your life, you can get a lot out of that. And you don't have to go deep and continue down the rabbit hole. You can just stick with some basics. I got plenty of clients who still do just the basic stuff. They like it, and that's kind of their comeback. And they do that every day. And it's just, they found such a benefit in it. Even the most basic breathing techniques, it's really just creating that control and that conscious awareness creates a big shift. And nowadays you see there's so much, like you mentioned, you think of the breathing, that it's got to be like some big event, because there's a lot of, especially if you look on social media, online, it's these big, powerful, transformational breath techniques, which there's a lot of benefit in those. But it's, those type of techniques, you really need to get the basics down first, I feel like, before you go into those. Because if you're not breathing properly going into that stuff, it can just kind of exacerbate. And while you might feel good when you get done, if you keep doing that every day, in a year, you might have exacerbated whatever problems you have going on. So it's kind of like going into the gym and trying to deadlift 500 pounds when you've never even picked up a bar. Probably going to hurt your back.
Yeah. Are there some basic benchmarks someone can do to kind of figure out what their current state is, so they can figure out, like, hey, am I making progress?
Yes. So that max exhale test I mentioned, it's what we do there. It's kind of, I can explain it here quickly. You're basically doing 3 normal breaths in, normal breath out. And you take a 4th breath fully in, and you're timing your exhale. So once you start exhaling, you're going to start a timer, and you're going to exhale out as long as you can. If you panic, if you swallow, stop for any reason, you're done. If you're trying to make that exhale as long as possible, it's done all through the nose. And, if you can score that anywhere from a 40 or above, you're doing pretty solid. Most people are probably starting around 20 that we see. And within a few weeks, we can easily get them 40 to 60, even longer than that. You look at free divers, people like that who are very in depth with this stuff. I mean, they can do it for over 90 plus seconds. But if you're under 20 there, you've definitely got some dysfunctional breathing patterns. You're probably breathing in and out of your mouth. Most likely have a little anxiety that you deal with, struggle with, stress. So making some small little changes there, that's the easiest one you can really do. And then we've got some subjective tests on our site. We have a stress assessment that we put people through, and that's a good way to kind of gauge where you are as well. And it's something you can kind of go back and retake too.
I love that. So sort of what I'm hearing is, even in this, past few minutes we've been talking about this, we now have an answer to, hey, how do you start, benchmark where you're at, given some pretty clear advice on what you can do, even as a complete beginner, to actually start, gaining control of your breath. And then even if someone just did that for 5-10 minutes a day for a couple weeks, to see how that improved, their against their original benchmark, like that alone in this past, whatever it's been, half an hour, is enough for someone to like get started and gain, proof of concept here into how powerful this actually is.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's amazing how basic of a function this is, that we take so for granted how powerful a function this really is. Right? We don't think about it as much because it's just, something we do innately. It's the first thing we do and last thing we do, like you said. But how much power there is in that when you gain control over it. And I love really everything about your approach to this is simple. It's no nonsense. It is easy to understand. And I think that really helps a lot of people who are new to this kind of jump in and become a little bit more interested, where it doesn't feel so overwhelming, or it doesn't feel like woo-woo kind of science that people don't understand. Is there some apprehension people have toward thinking this might actually help? Have you seen that?
Yeah, less so now. But when I first started this, and I was putting on first breathing sessions back in 2018, especially being in Memphis, Tennessee, people are like, well, what the hell is this? Very, thinking it's woo woo. But since COVID happened, I think that brought a lot of the awareness about it, the stress. Then James Nestor wrote his book, Breath, which is a great primer on, some of the science. He does some experiments on himself and other people, talks about, difference between nasal and mouth breathing, how it affects your body, your nervous system, your health. And I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes. So there's still some apprehension, just like with anything, but nowadays it's a little less so. And then I think once people do it, they realize, all right, I feel better. I feel a little calmer, feel a little easier. Maybe I, had some performance anxiety, or I had some stage fright and I got to go speak. And, 5 minutes before going out there, I was able to kind of calm myself out and go and do the best I could, as opposed to, completely panicking and freaking out, or, having that difficult conversation at home when you don't want to, or you have a stressful day at work. And when you get home, you spend a minute in the car before you go inside, and you're able to kind of let that go and then be present for your family. I think that's where people see a lot of benefits. And what I love is when clients say, my wife or my kids, what they are the ones who notice, and they say, hey, you're acting different. They're more calm, more pleasant to be around. I think that's when you see the real benefit of it.
I love that. Did you ever think when you, like in your previous career, so go back, 10 plus years, whatever that was, did you ever think you'd have that level of impact on people and their families?
No, not necessarily. Not really. Not in that way. This is not anything I ever thought about. Back then it was, try to impact them in another way by helping them make money and have money for later in life, but not in this way. That's for sure.
Do you think there's a difference for people with regard to helping them make money versus helping them breathe and be a better version of themselves? Like, which one feels better?
Well, this obviously feels better for me, since I left doing the other and now do this. I think it's the changes you can see with people, because like you were saying, if people don't really think about it, they don't necessarily understand it or even know. And what I love about it is it's something that we all have it inside of us. You have your breath with you forever. So you can either learn how to use it and learn how to take control of your stress, or you can let it crush you. And most people let it crush you. And it doesn't have to be that way, because, stress is a part of life as well. It's going to be with us forever, and it's not bad. It's not good. It just is. And it's how you let it, how you handle it, more importantly than anything. And, so that's what I love. It's, giving people tools that they can use forever.
Yeah.
You only have to learn them for a little bit. You can dive deeper if you want, or you can just take what you have and keep it for the rest of your life.
I love that. And I love, like I said, how really simple it is. Because, if there's someone who's doubting it, like, again, you've given them everything they need to start and get that proof that they feel like they need in order to believe it. They can do it right now, and within a couple of days, be a believer. There's no tremendous, huge sales pitch. There's no whatever. Like, it's about really helping people be the best version of themselves. And it's basically free to start. But like, hey, once you want to go a little bit further, then you can kind of go in and get the deeper information, right? Because there's obviously a ton of different ways you can go about this, and a tremendous amount of skill that you have that you can impart on people. And I just think it's really impressive, your ability to simplify that and make it approachable for people. And I want to give you a tremendous amount of honor, because it's not something you came here to gatekeep. You came here to share and to help people be the best version of themselves. And, I think a lot of people tend to hold back on those sort of informational nuggets behind an invoice. And they say, hey, I'll help you, but only if you pay me first. And I just want to give you some honor for showing up here and doing that, where you say, hey, I'm willing to give the knowledge that helped me in my life and made me a better version of myself. I'm here to share that, not just to say, hey, I'm only going to help you if you pay me, but I'm going to help you because you deserve it. And then I, at least for me, in my personal opinion, believe that that money comes back to you tenfold after that, because people, they bought in, they trust it, they appreciate that honor and integrity. And it's not something you see enough anymore. So just wanted to thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's it's refreshing to see. And especially, going from what you were focused on before and chasing the dollar value. I'm not saying necessarily you were only focused on money before, but the shift from, hey, let me focus on money as a metric of success, to peace and joy and happiness and fulfillment and being able to breathe and be joyful, I think is a really telling thing, right? Because there's a lot of people who currently still chase money as the definition of success, and maybe some get it, maybe some don't. But I think those that get it but still have this underlying anxiety and stress in their lives, they don't really find that joy, right?
Yeah. It's, money's important. We have to have it to live. You have to, we need it to do things. And that helps to make an impact. Can't sit here and give everything away for free, or I wouldn't be able to impact others. So, that's part of the coaching process. But there is more to life, and it's, your health, your relationships, how you're able to handle that stress. The better you can handle stress and deal with this, what's going on in your life, the better you're going to be able to perform at work and potentially make more money and, show it better and have better relationships. And, that's kind of stuff that really matters.
Yeah. And I think it's really true that, like, when you invest that in yourself, you tend to get better results than you'd even think. Like, I know even for me, I spent the early part of my career chasing money as a definition of success. When I changed that to focus more on the family part and said, hey, I'm not chasing money first, the businesses wound up doing even better, right? Everything wound up increasing even more. So I think for someone who's maybe focused on money first, if they instead take that same dollar amount, invest it in a good coach, invest it in their health, right? Not worry about, does it make sense to pay for someone to teach me how to breathe? Yeah, it does. Like, that investment that they're going to make into having someone who's going to train them and hold them accountable and teach them all of the experience that you've gained over those past 10 years, like, they'll get that money back and then some, because of how happy they'll be, how fulfilled they'll be, how healthy they'll be to be able to go out and get even more.
Yeah, that's right. And it's an investment.
Yeah.
If you're not investing in your health, at some point it's going to be a pay me now or pay me later. You're either going to be paying the medical system, and probably a whole lot more, down the line, whether, through all the health issues, for the mental health issues, it's going to be paid somehow. And would you rather invest and be able to do your best, or give it back to the medical system later?
Yeah,
Which might have
I
to
100%
anyway,
agree.
but that's kind of the way I always look at stuff like this.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think for a lot of people, they don't necessarily think about those things until it's too late, right? You could have 99 problems, except if health is one of them, then you only have one.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So for someone who's interested in learning more and actually, right, going past the basics, where do they contact you and how do they go further? And what does that even look like?
Yeah, we find us on our website. It's www.symmetry.live, Live. And we have a stress test assessment right there that you can take. And, that can put you on our list, and you'll get more information. You can also set up a call straight from there as well. We've got a host of free resources. We have group coaching, one-on-one coaching, corporate work, so a little bit of everything, kind of depending on what you need and what your price point is. But just starting straight at the website and doing that stress assessment, which is right there on the homepage, is a great way to start.
Good. Well, again, I appreciate you being here and sharing everything you shared. It's been a tremendous honor, and again, a huge thank you to you for doing what you do, because I can't tell you the amount of lives it impacts and the impact it has is something that might seem so insignificant as breathing really is such an important thing. And I thank you for taking the time and energy to devote your life to doing that.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, before you go, can I pray for you real quick? Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this day, for this opportunity, for this time, for the breath in our lungs. for waking us up today. Father, I want to thank you for giving us this time together, for the wisdom and willingness of our guest to share what he knows about breathing and breath and the importance of using that breath to help those around us, help ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. Father, I ask you to continue help us on this mission that we're on, the mission that you put us on, to be here to live out our path, whatever that path may be, and continue to give us that breath in our lungs, and that we may steward that breath well, that we may not take it for granted that we woke up today and that we have that breath in our lungs, but we may use that breath and improve that breath to continue and follow that mission. Father, I ask all these things in your name. Amen. Love you.